we've all kind of been referencing the sacrifice phase, or the sacrifice price of 3 zeros and a 1. But I mean, that as we go on is going to become a thing of the past, and people probably aren't going to focus on it as much. So I think it's best to look at the actual bottom as the bottom, which it is clearly. But if you're not buying when it's down, you're not capitalizing on that move as much. So let's get into our ecosystem here. So PulseChain, big time pump as soon as October began with the rest of the market. And do you want to pull the chart up? We can just kind of look at PulseChain here whenever you get a minute, Ewok.
Sure.
Just to kind of maybe we'll look at some of what the next resistance levels could be, what we could see from Pulse and the ecosystem from here. We can look at the Pulse X chart, not to depress anybody, but maybe we can look at both of those. But I want to, as you're pulling that up, Ewok, I'd like to ask you, I mean, do you think that this recent pump and kind of the solidification we've seen of that over the last couple of weeks, is it even more of a sign that the bottom is in? I mean, everybody's favorite charter, I just saw he's going to be on later tonight with Vibra Finance, but if I'm saying that correctly, but Axis Alive is going to be on a stream here in a little while. We had him on a few weeks ago, and everybody's favorite PulseChain charter last week when he was on with Crypto Heartbeat, I think it was very confident that he thought the bottom was in after just what we've kind of seen lately. And it's hard to disagree. I mean, it's gone down and touched that like third point quad 433 a couple of times. It happened right after the SEC news came down on like August the 1st. And then it happened a couple of weeks ago too. So we've been up over that now, and you're seeing these higher lows kind of be put in here as we pull up the chart. So
it was depressing to go from the 15-minute chart down to the daily chart, because this is looking pretty good here, right? And then you go back to the daily chart and you're like, oh yeah, I forgot we're still pretty far down here. But to your point, yes, we are. We're putting in the higher lows since back here August 23rd. Now, don't forget, I think we are on day 143. I looked earlier today. So we got 143 days of candles. It's looking rather good. Now, what levels are we looking at? Well, we need to get above this, one of the very first resistance levels that we had, where it bounced off of pretty good, and that's like 0.4 zeros and a 0.55. Actually,
I was going to say that or 6 or something.
Yeah, the 5. It's funny because that was technically the all-time bottom for Hex was 0.0000 was a 5655. So we're in a very similar territory right in through here. And that's where we really need to break through next. You got some of these other ones right around looks like 48, where it's bounced off of that a couple times. So this is going to be a very telling. I am sharing my screen, right?
Yeah, I got it.
Oh, okay. I think it's going to be a very telling level as we can break through this, because we've 1, 2, 3, 4 days of candles where we bounced off of that level at that 4837-ish level. If we can bust through that on this next one of these next run-ups and stay above it, and then if it does pull back, hopefully that becomes the new support. So I mean, that's one of the things that you definitely want to keep an eye out for, is getting above this 0.00048. So, that's our next point. And then obviously after that, like I said about the 5.5 level, and then you start getting into some of these 6, 9, 7 areas, because this big candle didn't have a whole lot of resistance. It just tanked.
Just out of the bottom of the basement.
Yeah. So, there isn't a whole lot of different levels that are stopping it on our way back up. So hopefully we can make some nice runs. Now, like I said, there are a couple of these little ones where it did chop around, and it will be resistance. But once we break through it, if we can turn that resistance into support, we're looking good to keep making some of these higher lows and truck on our way up through there back to the original sacrifice amount. So
and this is
what
why.
I'm saying. Oh wait,
yeah, this No, that was you had hold on a sec.
This is the
No, you had
Pulse X
Pulse up.
chart.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
but
think
it's
you had Pulse up.
Pulse X.
I just want to say real quick, but this is why we do buy the bottoms, you know, I mean, or if you want to, but I mean, that's what we've been doing along the way is buying the bottoms. And that's why you do it, because I said this a couple of weeks ago, and we've all kind of been referencing the sacrifice phase, the sacrifice price of 3 zeros and a 1. But I mean, that as we go on is going to become a thing of the past, and people probably aren't going to focus on it as much. So I think it's best to not worry about that number as much and look at the actual bottom as the bottom, which it is clearly, and just be buying it. And, you know, hey, maybe we have to adjust our expectations down, you know, as you learn more data and more things happen as to what people may have thought this thing was going to do initially. But if you're not buying when it's down, you're not capitalizing on that move as much. So, you know, you could just kind of be a bag holder and not do anything. And, you know, I've heard Sami's talked about this a lot, but about how depressing it would be for some of these people if we go like another 6 months or another year almost to where it takes PulseChain to get to sack rate or a little bit above again or something. And that would be like 3 years that these people were holding, getting nothing basically.
Yeah.
I understand that for somebody who over leveraged themselves, but that really wasn't you or I or anybody sensible, I don't think. So if people are out there feeling that kind of pain, I can't really relate to it. And that would just be like a nice lesson maybe for next time to not leverage yourself so high in a sacrifice type phase or something like that. You know, it's just a small portion of my portfolio overall. I was more concerned with buying Hex leading up to the split to get that copy, you know, back in December of 2022
exactly.
when it was, So a good lesson for everybody. Not that this opportunity is ever going to come again necessarily, but just a good lesson for next time if there is one anyway. But what do you think though for PulseChain for the rest of the year? Then I mean, we talked about BTC 35K. I think we both think is maybe the most realistic, like bullish thing that could happen. But what do you think for PulseChain? I mean, we obviously are going to have maybe an event at the end of November with that phone conference. I don't know what we'll get out of that. That may be a decent factor in all of this as far as short-term price action. But what do you think by the end of the year for PulseChain?
I think it could be very bullish, especially if no one shows up.
Well, if it, including the SEC, you mean, or if there's just if there's no reason for people to show up.
Well, I mean, so here's the thing: if Richard has not been served, why would he have anybody, that represents him show up? That's almost him admitting that he's been served, right? If he hasn't been served, I don't see any reason for them to show up at this phone conference. That's just
he's not going to. That'd be stupid. Yeah,
right. That's what I'm saying. So I think that the whole non-showing up would be super bullish, basically a big FU to them. I think it could really catapult things. Now if something does turn around and come out after that, we could see a little pullback because that would, entice some bearish sentiment across the board of like, oh crap, now what? But I think that could really help us to the end of the year. I could see us getting up close to that 3-0 number, somewhere between 7 and 9,000. I think it's going to at least 2x from here by the end of the year. I could see that stair step up to that point at least. That's just kind of what I'm thinking.
Well, that would be sack rate, So it would be interesting. Yeah, he's definitely not going to show up, or neither any representation if he doesn't get served. I'm more interested in if they aren't able to serve him, what the SEC would do. Do they just show up hat in hand and say, sorry, we didn't even serve the guy? Or
I think it expires. I think they would have to resubmit it then after and try again. Is how it works out as far as what I understand. If they're not able to serve after so long, it kind of gets thrown out and they have to resubmit.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we will see. It's definitely going to be an interesting day. That's still about almost still 8 weeks off. So
yeah, it's 2
after
months.
Thanksgiving here, we can flip the calendar over and see what's going on there.
Yep.
Maybe get an early Christmas present. We'll see.